Hello and welcome to this video, and I'm very pleased to have Andy Graziano with me, who is the guitarist and multi-instrumentalist in the band Geeks. And the
Hello.
prog fans out there will know that Band Geeks has become the band of John Anderson, prog legend, lead singer of the band Yes. And they have a brand new album out, and that's the album there. He's got it on vinyl. I've got mine on CD. It's in the car though. I wish I brought it in now because I could have showed it that I actually did buy it on CD, and that's something I do about 4 times a year. So
I have to buy your latest album too.
you don't have to buy it.
No, 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 no. I advise anybody listening to this or watching this that you should buy this because the name of it is Law of Three, correct?
Yeah, Law of Three, yes.
With obviously your incredible drumming, but this guy, Roy Marchbank, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Is a complete freak of nature in the best possible way. Not sure what he's doing,
No,
and that's
nobody
for
is.
sure.
Most of all him.
Yeah,
He's a
it's kind of
force of
my
nature. He's a force of nature, and I do not know why the guy is not a household name in the guitar world. Uh,
well, let's
yeah, but we might come to that onto the guitar virtuosity at the end of this. Um, yes, so let's go and rewind right to the beginning. How old were you when you started playing guitar? Because you're pretty nifty.
Well, thank you. I started when I was like 13. I had taken piano lessons before that, so like 6 years old, something like that. I started playing piano, and then I started listening to Def Leppard, and Poison, and
Hmm.
Guns N' Roses, and then Metallica. I heard about this band Metallica. Oh, let me check out this band Iron Maiden, and then I'm like, okay, it's time for me to learn how to play the guitar now. So that's sort of
And what were your guitar heroes right to start off with?
to start off with, I was in a pretty deep Randy Rhoads phase. So Randy Rhoads, the Metallica guys, Dave Murray, Jimmy Page, obviously, all the greats from that time, Clapton, Blackmore. Once I was able to start playing some Deep Purple, that's kind of like, oh wait, whoa, 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 hold on. Let me start from the can't forget Tony Iommi because without Tony Iommi,
You can't forget him.
there's no
Can't
Tony,
forget him.
no Tony, no me. Put it like that. So
Don't you think it's weird that I live on the other side of the planet, and it's almost identical for me. It's all the same musicians, and I went eventually down a jazz route and got into all the fusion stuff and prog, and also modern classical music, electronic music. I've done dance music, hip hop, but we all seem to be rooted back in basically Iron Maiden, which was one of the first bands I really loved back in 1980. So, and I don't think these bands get enough credit. There's so many incredible players out there that have started, listening to that sort of era of 1980s heavy rock and heavy metal. It's fantastic. So, how did you graduate up to prog?
so that's when I met Richie finally. So his father has a great music store, and the whole family has
This
they've
isn't
had.
this isn't Richie Blackmore, by the way, is it? Because you just
No, this is Richie Castellano.
yeah.
Let me
So
phrase that. So
tell us all
Castellano's,
about Richie Castellano, because he's
Castellano's
quite a
House of
legendary character in himself, isn't he?
Oh yeah, Castellano's House of Music at what is it? 1014 Richmond Avenue in Staten Island, New York. No, but they opened this store up. I had only been to like the big box kind of guitar stores since then, and then one day my dad came home and was like, "Hey, we found this. I found this new guitar store. We got to go over there." So I went in and immediately I met John, his father, and I'm like 14, 15 or something. We played a little bit. He's like, "Oh, you got to call my son. You guys would be great together." And like ever since then, that's what it was. So he was exposed to Yes from his uncle Phil and other people. They're like, "Hey, you should learn how to play this song, Heart of the Sunrise." And he didn't quite get it at first, and it was like, "What?" So he passed that on to me, and we were checking. I was like, "Hey, you gotta check this stuff out. It's so cool." And even just that one song, hearing that the organ break in the very beginning for the first time after that muscular, the big riff and
Yeah.
everything. What is this? I love this. So that's sort of like that was my first toe dip into the prog world. So from there you go from Yes to ELP and all those kind of groups like that. And then they
That
get
Heart of the Sunrise is interesting because yes, they don't really have that heavy metal guitar sound, and you don't associate them with sort of being sort of prog metal pioneers. But you're totally right that the riff to Heart of the Sunrise does it all in 1971. I mean, and nobody really surpasses anything that bonkers.
No,
I can remember when I first heard that, that was just, oh my God, so heavy. And
like
and
maybe the return of the giant hogweed is up there a little bit, and that kind of
yes,
like,
that's the same year. But
but it's like you
that
could do a blast beat over Heart of the Sunrise and it would
yeah.
be appropriate.
And that bass line afterwards, when it drops down, Chris Squire's bass sound there, it's incredible. Yeah, it's interesting
Richie
how
does a
that those
monologue
joins
with him.
between being a heavy rock fan, heavy metal fan, and then those little bits in prog that pull you in. There's
Yeah.
like a list of
Oh,
tracks.
I can get on that.
Yeah, it's like I can remember my mate had Classic Yes, it was called. And
Hmm.
I'd heard that, and I went round and he put on Wondrous Stories, and I was like, "Ugh, what's this?" Of course, I love it now.
Yeah,
Absolutely
right.
love it now. So, um, carry on through your sort of career in music.
So
Did
here
you?
we are. So we're in high school now. We're
Yeah.
attempting to try to play some of these things. We're writing our own things. What else happens then? We the band names are the best too. We start out with like what was the first name? It was The Next Reality, which is
Mm,
like that's just,
very prog.
yeah. Then we go to Speed of Sound, and then we become, and this is my favorite, but we become a band called Progeny. And so like 30 years later, when Yes releases Progeny Tales from whatever the tour,
Yeah.
like wait a minute, that's a weird bit of fate there. But anyway, so we did that. Then we we're playing all different kinds of things. That's the weird thing about us is like we were never really one thing. Like we love prog, we love metal stuff.
Mm,
Richie is like a dyed-in-the-wool R&B guy from his father being in wedding bands and a great singer and player himself, and blues. And me and Richie used to go to the blues clubs together, two like dorky
mm,
teenagers. Not that we're not dorky 40-year-olds now, but we're dorky
yeah.
teenagers. We're the blues clubs with our fathers, and they're like, look at these two kids. What are they gonna do? We go up there and like and play all like that, and they're like, oh my god, these kids. So we're playing blues. We're playing pretty much everything that we can get our hands on.
Mm.
Uh, then at some point we sort of like go different ways a little bit. Everyone's going to college and everything. Richie ends up joining Blue Oyster Cult after that starts as
So,
their
so I mean, you say it like that, but that's when
yeah,
you've got a bunch of mates and you all
yeah.
play together. So, just to clear this up, the band Geeks have been going a long time. It's a long time, isn't it?
Sort of the three of us, me, Richie, and Andy Escalise, our
Yeah.
drummer, who was also our keyboard player. We're like we've been together the longest, and then Rob Kipp, our keyboard player, he came in much later because he started out in Long Island. I don't know how good your New York geography is, but he's from Long Island.
Terrible.
Like, moves to Staten Island, where we're all from. Uh, Ends up becoming friends, I believe, with Richie's then wife, Anne Marie Nachio, who's also singing on the album as well. In college, they play together. Rob starts playing with Richie's father, John, and their band. And then it turns out he's like this huge Genesis fan. So he knows everything there is to know about Genesis. He's also like a record guy. So if you need to know like which German vinyl test pressing of an album sounds the
Mm.
best, he's the guy. Like we're all geeks in our own way. He's geek on that. I'm geek in other things, you know. Anyway, so and then Chris Clark. So Chris Clark and Richie tells the story great, but Chris Clark is an he's a little bit older than us, but he's been around forever. He's played with John Entwistle. He's played in Brand X.
Mm.
He's played with Bernie Williams, formerly of the New York Yankees. All these great people.
I
And he
didn't
said
realise
that,
it was the Chris Clark from Brandex.
oh yeah,
I
oh
know
yeah.
who that is. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's interesting. That is, yeah,
And Chris is we'll get into
yeah.
all the people that we know that are complete freaks musically. So he's one of them. And Richie tells a hilarious story about being on a job together. And I guess Chris had seen Richie some of the Band Geek videos, and he knew exactly who he was. So Richie sits down. They're gonna play this. I think it was maybe tribute to Queen or something like that, where everyone's like, Chris sits down at a keyboard over there and like starts playing all the songs. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
playing. It's like, and then Richie stands up later and just walks over to him and goes, "Do you want to come over my house and play yes music?"
So where did you get the name the band Geeks?
I that
Because
was a
you
Richie
know, in the
thing.
UK, we don't have this phrase at all. So
No.
I just being the dopey idiot that I am, I think I've been calling you the band of geeks, thinking it was like
Okay.
you've got the band of
It's not, you're
gypsies,
not
but you're not gypsies, you're geeks. I thought that's a clever name. I
that's
like
it.
that, but it's not that. So
Yeah, I
so
forget where
what is the
that came
concept of
from.
the band geeks? Because it is a sort of phrase, isn't it?
Oh, the idea was for the part supposed to be a bunch of people that are just geeks getting around talking about things,
Yeah,
geeking out over music or whatever it is that
yeah,
your
yeah.
time is. So friends doing geeky things together, something like
Mm.
that.
So, tell us a little bit about Richie joining Blue Oyster Cult, because that,
Sure.
yeah, because that must have been, was that like one of the first, we know, of you initial group musicians, that was the first person really to branch out into the industry proper?
Yeah, so he got in there first as a sound guy. I think he was doing either front of house or whatever. And our good friend Woody Lacera, he's Steve Lacera. He's our current tour manager and sound guy also, and he was working for them at the time. And another Brooklyn guy from Grandma C's music store and Bath Music, and recommended Richie for it. And he got right in there, and something happened. Bass player left or something, and kind of they were like, oh, this guy Richie that does this thing, he also plays really well. And like, you kind of get in there as you go, and he became their bass player for a while, and then uh now he's their second guitar player and keyboard player, and also sings lead on things and sings, so he does a lot, and a phenomenal producer. He produced their last album, the oh my gosh, The Symbol Remains,
Mm.
what's it called. So he wrote like half of that with them and produced it and everything along with some other people. But yeah, so he was the first one to kind of get in there and do stuff like that. Andy also plays with all kinds of people. He does tributes for Meatloaf, and he's been in with the Queen tribute with the guy Mark Martel and other people in general. Kasim Sultan is another guy that they play a lot with, the two of them, who is also a lovely gentleman. I got the chance to play with him once. That was really nice.
So this seems to me that it's. I mean, I've got a whole network of players like this, and they make a living. Sometimes they manage to join quite an established band, and they tour with them, or they're doing like function gigs, or playing tribute bands, or they might be playing in musicals. It's yeah, and they're all that for me. Those are always the best players. They're not band players. They've come out of bands, but they've got the chops and they can move around. And you guys sort of gravitate around YouTube at some point. When did that happen, and how did that, you know, uh,
It's been going on for about 10 years. And it's quite amazing because you look back at it. He did a video recently, Richie did, where he sort of stitched together a little clip of all the songs that they've played over the years, and there's a lot of music that they've done, and
yeah,
like you see, like I start showing up here and there, and then over the last few years, it's like I'm in everything now because like
yeah.
we've sort of like these are the people that really, like, I don't know. Uh, yeah, it's weird though because I didn't follow them during doing the music as, playing music as a career thing. I went into education. So so right out of college, I went back to college. I did my degree in classical guitar. So I'm like, all right, now what do I do? I'll get my degree in teaching and I'll be a music teacher. So I've been a music teacher for like the last 10, 15 years. In addition to playing, and I would play whenever I wanted to for fun. So I was doing a wedding band for a while. I had a couple of original bands over the years, but like that wasn't the focus. But because of the kind of music that I like, and because I did the classical training, I can sort of play whatever I want to play,
Mm,
depending on how much, right? Like I learn things really fast. Uh, and so when he was like, "Hey, I just met this guy, Chris Clark. We have to do Close to the Edge now. So go learn it." So I went and learned, and it took me like I'm saying, like I learned things really fast because I was doing weddings for a while. That one song took me about 2 months to figure out, transcribe, and learn because that's the thing with Yes, there's only a handful of people that try to do it, and there's not too many covers online, and there's because it's hard. It's like Steve Howe is no joke. There's a reason why he won the award every year in the 70s.
Yeah.
And especially like listen to that play on like the later 70s tours, going for the one tour and the Toronto. The guy's smoking. The whole band is on fire and they're crazy good. And he layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. So you have to
Mm.
figure out like what's in there, what do I have to play, what can I leave out, what all those kind of things that you have to do to play that
Yeah,
stuff.
I've got friends who were in on the scene in London in the mid '60s before Yes, and they all say that in London you've got a whole bunch of guitar players, and obviously you've got Hendrix and Jeff Beck, but that band Tomorrow with Steve Howe, he was just incredible. And I always thought what's interesting is that when you listen to the Yes album when he first comes in, and you listen to the end of Perpetual Change, he spins out a legato guitar solo in just in the fade out, and I'm like, what was that? 1971? Who the hell is playing at that speed around the guitar?
Yep.
Pre-Holdsworth, incredible.
His there's an outro solo on Adventure. You know that one?
Yeah,
And right before it fades out, he spits out this lick that's like it's like, oh my god, this guy's
yeah,
just
yeah.
never ceases to amaze.
An incredible player, and I once saw him playing with Aisha when they got back and reformed, and he was just all over the place on the guitar, like way past what I'd heard on record. He just seemed to be channeling that way of playing. But of course, you've got the sort of flamenco, and you've got the Bert Jansch finger picking approach, and then he can play pedal steel. He is really is something else. And I'm sure we'll be discussing him as this video goes on because it'll get interesting because at some point, and I remember back in the day you doing these excellent versions of various prog and mainly Yes stuff on YouTube. I have a memory of that, and so how did you hook up with the prog legend John Anderson?
Well, it's another great all-time story, and he tells it every day, every night on stage
Yeah,
too, which is he's like, I call, yeah, I don't
yeah.
want to do it, but you know what I mean, because it's the voice. When you hear the
It just
voice, oh, it's
yeah, do
him.
it. I like it. I like it.
He cold called Richie.
Yeah,
He had been sent this fella, friend of ours, well, a friend of his, a guy named John Amick, uh, forwarded him our video of playing that, and he just cold called Richie to tell. I think he was on the way home from working on the Blue Oyster Cult album. I think he was in the
yeah.
car or something, and he gets a call from a number he doesn't recognize, and it's like, "Hi, this is Richie. This is John Anderson," and he's like, "What?" Like, and like the way Richie describes it's funny. He's like, "I was a complete like mush. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, what do you do when your hero calls you? Like I must have been a moron." But and then so he's like, it'd be great. Maybe we should play together sometime. It'd be great. All right, great. So didn't think much of it after that, and then he went to go see them play. He came to Staten Island during the 1,000 Hands tour.
I bet that was an interesting gig.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
were
he
you
came.
were they playing Yes tunes on that? I assume.
I wasn't at that show, unfortunately. I'm sure they
No,
played one or
yeah.
two,
Can you imagine
but
doing that gig? You know.
yeah. And he started kicking the tires on it again. He's like, "Listen, if we want to really do this, like, do you think you could make some time to have that happen?" I was like, "I will try my best." And
Uh, I have to
sure
add,
enough, he continued. I
last
mean,
night
what
I
a
was
leap
in last night I
I was,
was in London playing with Tim Bonus, and we were doing No Man songs,
I
and
saw your drum solo from that before.
yeah, and
Unbelievable.
of course Stephen Wilson turned up, so we ended up playing No Man songs in front of
Oh,
Stephen
nice.
Wilson. But I don't think it's still in the same league as playing Yes songs in front of John Anderson.
Cool.
So
I mean, what a leap of faith on his. I mean, we're a bunch of people that he's never met before. We did YouTube. I mean, YouTube. There's a lot of fake news on YouTube, so like, who
yeah.
knows? He took
So
a chance and
what when he saw you? What I wonder. I mean, this is the big mystery, and this is really why I've set this up so people can see. I said to you, I think it's going to be quite a long one because there's a specific thing I want to get to in this,
Yes.
and I think it's John Anderson's motivations of why he called you up.
I don't know.
You
That's a
don't
good
know.
question. Well, what he said was he's like, I heard you guys and it sounded like I was in the 70s. It freaked me out. So I think that's what he's just trying to recapture maybe some of that, whatever that feeling.
I feel that that Yes is John Anderson. I think that the Yes have a flavor or a vibe or an essence, and I think it's personified by John Anderson.
I
And
would
I
agree. Definitely that. It's him and Chris's voice together, which is another
Yeah,
match combo.
but
The
it's more than a sound. Obviously, he's if I think if you got any band of reasonable players and then got John Anderson to sing over the top, you would go, "Oh my God, sounds like Yes," even if they were doing something else, because his voice is so incredibly iconic, and his
that's pretty much
voice
what
is
happened
so
with 90125, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yeah, I mean
cinema.
that's the thing. You've got those Trevor Rabin songs, and they're really great AOR songs. And then as soon as John turns up, and starts singing about eagles over the top. It's a Yes album, and I feel this is so important because I mean a whole ton of good players, and Yes had a whole ton of good players, and some of them very iconic players, but you need to have John there. And I wondered whether there was something that was there in the 1970s in that band that a sort of because Yes is not the product of John Anderson's sort of vision. He needs the band around him, doesn't he? He was very good at taking these characters in and utilizing them, so their personalities came out fully. And then, he wasn't coming in with finished songs. They would improvise in the studio, and all this type of stuff. And I wonder whether he was looking for that rather than a band that could just replicate Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, that's why at the end of towards the end of the tour last year, he just offhandedly on the way out one night says to Richie, "Hey, we're gonna make an album together." Like, and Richie's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it'll be done in 3 months." And Richie's like, "What?" And you hear him describe how they made the thing together. I wasn't involved in a lot of like the writing of it and the arranging.
Mm,
I more came in like at the end to just kind of record parts and put my own little 2 cents in. So Richie and Chris and Andy did most of that work with John, like on Zoom meetings, kind of like this,
yeah.
like week for a few hours, and they exchanged ideas. John would send him sort of his fragments, and Richie might send him some fragments, and John is there, and he's not passive. He'll tell you exactly what he wants you to play, and he'll say, "All right, do it like this, and you're going to play it like this. Use this scale," and then he's very, very much an organizer, and he's without an instrument in his hand, he plays the band like that. Put it like
God,
that.
I think yeah, and I think that's what he was looking for. Is he's looking for that sort of inspiration. Yeah, and I think in that comment you've hit the nail on the head. But I've always felt there's a certain visionary aspect to him, and I mean
Yeah,
he's quite little. He's got the little high voice, and you expect, but it's a force of nature, isn't it? And to
that's
be able to
that's
galvanize you guys.
that is another great way to describe it too, because we're not thinking as big as he does. We weren't thinking tour, we were thinking video. Maybe it will
Mm,
be great if we can get him to do a YouTube video with us. No, he wants a tour. And then last year, the first song we did was that song Counties and Countries.
yeah,
Did that for the first tour. We had that finished for
yeah.
that. And he kind of like put everything into it. He's like, this might be our only shot to record with the guy. So like let's make it as epic as we possibly can. And all right, that's good. We have our song. No, we'll make an album. Okay. So thinking big again. Like so thanks for thinking big, John.
Yeah, it's a, and I also, I'm not going to pull any punches in here. I'm going to say what I
Yeah,
think,
no, go for it.
so because I think it makes the video more interesting. I always felt the magic of Yes early on was the fact that John Anderson was not able to write a full song. He could come up with the best line of vocal with the best lyric ever, and they're the most beautiful, well balanced thing, and they're a thing in themselves. But what he didn't do is come up with, like here's the verse and it goes to the chorus, so I've got a middle eight. And I think with those little fragments of vocal, he then utilized, especially when Steve Howe and Rick Wakeman came in, they were then able to use a classical, they had to use classical arrangement to basically position those different vocals in different musical contexts. And then that's the prog sound of Yes. But and I think that's why they get the label symphonic prog, because it is actually the symphonic approach.
Yeah,
Listening
I
to
mean,
the new
let's look at
album,
the Heart of the Sunrise. I mean, you have the first riff, and when it comes back again, like later in the song, where is it? It's at the fifth. It's gone
yeah,
up from A flat to E flat, and then at the end, it's in another key entirely. It's like you're not just taking a. What I find a lot with modern things is like a lot of times people will have a great riff or a great something, and then like you hear it once, and then you never hear it again.
yeah, yeah.
So I love the way they recycle things and freshen it up every single time. That was one of their great
It's
strengths.
because it's the songwriting so good, and and they
Yeah.
almost create their own way, I think, of taking these fragments of things, and that's what I enjoy. Right on the first album, they do the most obvious thing with All Good People, is they do it as a sort of an acoustic thing, and then they do it as a sort of shuffle. It's the same vocal in a different context. It's like that, that must have been, oh, we could do that, and then from that point on, it just gets more and more sophisticated. But listening to the new album, I also think that John Anderson's songwriting has evolved, because that's not what going there's much longer verses and choruses, and also because I wanted to point these things out of, everyone's going, oh, this new album, it's like a Yes album and all that, and they've captured the spirit. But I actually want to start by going, there's actually a difference. And the other thing is, I understand what John's singing about on this album. And I think that's what, there's some really touching, beautiful songs about stuff, and I think his songwriting's improved. It must be
He's had
frustrating
a
in
lot
a
of time to
way
prep.
to have spent a lifetime, 50 years, maybe even nearly 60 years developing as a songwriter, and then trying to find that home where you can now do what you do now. Because I think in a way it's when I listened to the album, I heard all the aspects of Yes. It wasn't like, oh, you've just gone back to the fragile close to the end. There's bits of 90125, there's bits of his own solo material, there's all sorts of things in there, and it's been all pulled together. And I think it's an incredible album, and I think the reason why people are going nuts over it is because it has the feel of a Yes album, but in a way, it's not like a Yes album. It's a development from that, and maybe a lot of us haven't heard John Anderson for a few years, so we suddenly hear where
The
he's at
John
now.
Anderson and the band Geeks out.
Mm.
That's what it is.
His
That's it.
voice is incredible. So I wanted to be objective and not just
Yeah.
go, I love the album. I wanted to explain why I thought it was so good. And I really was blown away by it. And the other thing that I thought that was, as soon as I put the first track on, I was instantly, you got me like that. From that on, it takes a brilliant bit of it. And the virtuosity on there is incredible. Absolutely incredible. So you guys are amazing players. And everyone says, oh, that it sounds like Yes. But I've noticed that as you particularly, you will go into the area of Steve Vai. Sorry, Steve Howe. Okay, I did this on another video the other day. And then you go to the area of Steve Vai. See how I pulled that together? You were mining that sound, but you're doing it very beautifully, because there's other moments where I can hear your sound come out. Was that conscious when you made it? To go, well,
Sort of.
I'll do a Steve Howe here, but I won't
But
do it.
yeah. So it works both ways because I didn't really study Steve Howe back in the day.
Mm,
Again, it's not easy. So like I played like when we did it in high school, I played bass on Heart of the Sunrise. And when we did like so going back now, like there are tribute bands that play all the songs. I play the songs that we play. Like I
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't out Siberian Khatru for you right now. Like I don't know it. I'd have to go back and learn it first. So there was a there's elements where you want to lean into it a little bit, and then because I don't know any better, I was able to not rely on it, put it like that. So like in True Messenger, the first solo that's there, like over his verse, okay,
Yeah,
that is a Steve Howe solo. But like at the end of the song, it's not. That was just like me doing me, I guess, whatever.
yeah.
So like
And then
it's
there's a
funny because
lot
like,
there's a
yeah,
lot more
he
rock
plays
in you,
Steve Howe
isn't
there, and
there?
then he plays. Was that?
Yeah, yeah. I said there's a
I'm
lot more
sorry.
rock in your playing once you let loose, don't you? I can
Oh yeah, yeah.
hear a bit there, the old Randy Rhodes and the Dave Murrays, you
I'm
know.
a lot like this. I am a lot less subtle than Steve Howe is.
But beautiful playing. So, um, if John is such a visionary, what's your take on it? Why has he done this at this time?
I guess he just felt the maybe he likes us. I don't know. He felt the connection.
So you think it's one of these things that he discovered you, he discovered the band, and you thought, yeah, let's just follow that, and he just followed his muse, and
I think
this is what.
so. I think that's a lot of what he goes. He's a gut guy. I think a gut and heart guy. So he just has a thought and he'll believe and just manifest it because he's John Anderson and he's magic. So he can do things like that.
Well, you've actually touched on. This was going to be the fundamental uh, sort of the sort of esoteric part of this interview because I don't just do normal videos. You know what my channel's like.
No, I like your
Um,
channel.
the idea that we manifest our destiny. This is all over this story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible that you there's kids and they like this music, and then because they
I
give it
love
so
the
much
fact
love, they just
I
give it.
love the fact when I see young people in a show, I say young people, like 20 something
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
are up there they're like they've heard Owner of Lonely Heart for the first time. Or like the average, Yes fan from back in the day is like, Owner of Lonely Heart again. These people are up there like, yeah, and they're dancing. I'm like, oh my gosh, young people like this. It's
Yeah.
great. I love
So
to see it.
so it's an interesting thing that if you really do what you love and you pursue it, e- even though the world's such a big place,
Mhm.
that love beams out, and you actually end up getting in contact with John Anderson and being out because you've been out on the road, you've been doing gigs. I mean, this is an incredible thing. I mean, you're pinching yourself,
Yes.
that.
Especially for me, like Richie and Andy and the other guys, like they are used to touring and they're used to playing with people and they're used to doing these kind of gigs. For me, like I've been plucked out of here. Here you go.
Yeah.
Have a stage to do your thing on. So I'm really grateful because I'm definitely having my cake and eating it too. Put it like that.
And that's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think uh, um, I've had a similar thing with this YouTube. I've spent
Yeah.
exactly like you, spent my whole life playing. I've had some nice gigs. I've also trolled around in a
Oh my
transit
gosh.
van doing cover versions. But suddenly, I mean, yesterday I'm sat there and I'm texting Aldi Meola and we're chatting.
Al, by the way, another huge influence.
Yes.
I love
And I just thinking this is so strange, And then I went to the this gig last night, and one of my heroes coming up was a British drummer called Mark Mondaisy, and he's played with Jeff Beck and John McLaughlin. And I messaged him. He came down to the gig because he's a fan of the channel, and so it's really
it.
interesting that both Band Geeks and me, we've had a very similar journey in that you love it so much. But
We
rather than try and go out and get a deal, at some point I moved to YouTube and you guys moved to YouTube, and it's reached out to these people. Do you often
right.
think that it's because these guys are of a certain age that they don't understand that bit of it? They're trying to find a way in. And so John's watching your videos and go, this is really interesting. I want to go because he could have easily just called up session musicians because would have been able to play it, and
Mhm.
you could go and get. I mean, here in the UK, there's like my partner in crime, John Jowett, who's a bass player with IQ and Frost and stuff like that. He's ready to go and do a Chris Squire. If John Anderson needs someone else to do, he's ready to go. It's all he's ever done for his whole life. But it's interesting that John does it another way, doesn't he? You know, gets
Yeah.
on the internet and goes and find these people that are approaching it in a different way, and then
I
manifests.
wonder I wonder if that has anything to do with him playing in with the School of Rock kids. Like these people are maybe it opened his mind to like these people are out there. All
Well,
you have to do is
tell the audience a little bit about that. I know about this, but you probably know more about this. What I know, we went out and did this.
oh the School of Rock.
Yeah.
That is it's called the Paul Green School of Rock. They have locations all over the country and they have, lessons and all that kind of stuff. And they did some kind of deal where I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but they put on concerts. They did like a set of their own stuff, whatever the kids are working on, and they learn it. They're all, I call them kids, but they're probably from kids to teenagers and above. I don't really know. Um, and then John would come out, sing a few songs with them, do some Yes songs, do some other songs. I mean, that's pretty cool to me. I'm like, you're like a 15-year-old kid, and you're like playing a Yes song with John, and then you're playing like probably like an R&B song with him or some
Mm.
other music with him. Like that's probably got to be pretty cool for both of them.
And I can remember because I did a little bit of work with Judy Slick, who is the bass player with Adrian Belew, and I think she came up through that school of rock because that Paul Green is a big prog fan, isn't he? And he actually has these contacts and rings them up. So, and a lot of the prog fans I can remember were going to see the School of Rock gigs and saying this has a vibe and an excitement that maybe Actual Yes does not have.
I see what you did there.
This is the bit, where I said I'm maybe not going to pull some punches here. So you're doing your thing.
Everybody's allowed an opinion. It's okay.
Yeah, you're out doing your thing. Yes, are doing their thing. And what's happened on the internet, there seems to be, well, I wouldn't call it a split, but there seems to be a comparison going on. And
Sure.
once I heard this album, I was of the, I was like, oh my God, this is Yes. This is Yes here.
That's nice to hear. I mean, that's not what we were setting out to do, but it's
Yeah,
nice that at least that
the
even
spirit,
just having a
yes.
comparison, that's very, very flattering and lovely.
So has John Anderson spoken about this at all? How he perceives Actual Yes,
Not
and
really.
no,
Not really. He kind of he's goes his direction. And I think for the fan, it's a great thing to have you can have all these nice choices. If you want to hear original, yes. They're making great new music. If you want to hear John Anderson and things he's
but is
doing,
but is it original Yes?
it's it's yes, TM. That's a great.
Yes. And yeah, I think I know, but you don't have to answer this or say anything. But I think recently the way John went, and then the way I don't know the singer after it, was it Brian Davison, the way he
Uh,
went,
John
and
Davison.
yeah, John Davison, that's the one, yeah, Brian Davison, who was he? But I just think it's all gone a little bit strange over in that camp, and I do feel that the way that band's being run, I can say that you don't have to answer this, you can just go like this. But I do think the way that that band's been run is not in the spirit of what the original band was like.
It's
That
tough when you get all the new faces in.
yeah.
So one thing when you have Chris there and Chris is the guy. So then once he's gone, all right, now you got to make some choices. You got to have new people come in, and every time you add somebody new, it changes things in one way or another. So it's a
And
new.
what and it's interesting when you look at Yes, because um, when I listen to your album, if your drummer's channeling anybody, it's Alan White, and so he should, because Alan White, joined in 1973 or whatever it was, and
You
stayed
do
there
some
for
of
like
yeah,
decade after decade, even though us
some of
Yes
the
kind of,
fiddlier bits. You could do some
yeah,
of the fiddlier bits, but he does it with like the rock energy of an Alan White for sure.
yeah, and I think when Alan White passed as well, once Chris Squire and Alan White went, there's a certain point when you
Oh,
go,
that's
can
the
this
sad.
band really exist as it was before. I mean, Steve has got a perfect right to do what he wants to do and go out and do the things he wants, and it's a vehicle for him to be creative, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But I think that John Anderson's approach of it not being called Yes and that gives you a freedom in a way, doesn't it? That
It's
the expectations are different, aren't they?
well, the original title of the group, and I'm not sure if maybe it still is. It's still like Yes, Epics and Classics featuring John Anderson and the band
Yeah,
Geek. Very snappy, quick to memorize title.
yeah,
So it's like sort of in there. So there is the expectation that this is like a yes-based presentation, but
yeah.
it's
Well, that's
more
promotion
words.
for you, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
you know. We need to get the word yes in there. It's got to be on the front of
yeah.
the building.
At least you know what you're going to be in for.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Whether
a
or not it
funny.
comes off is another thing, but at least this is what we're going to attempt to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and the way it's picked you up and dropped you in a certain place,
Yeah.
and I think what people need to sort of sit back and realize is the industry is so different. And you don't have to be like 22 and in a band trying to get a deal. You can spend your whole life playing, and at a certain age, be out on stage in front of big audiences playing music you love, and not just cover versions, but music that you've been involved in the creative birthing
That's
of to some extent.
And that is one of the great joys of the shows that we're playing recently, because now that we get to do a few of the original songs, it's like I don't feel the same kind of anxiety that I do playing something like Awaken or Close to the Edge when it's my like I wrote that part. So if
Mm.
I mess it up, that's on me, but
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah.
Like I'm feel a little freer and have a little more not fun, but like I have more ownership of it.
And
Like guest
does
songs
John
is like guardianship, but the original songs is an ownership, which is different, which is
yeah
kind of nice.
does John let is there any latitude in reworking the original songs in any way?
Oh,
Is
he started immediately. So we have everything recorded and ready to go. We come up we were playing True Messenger and he goes, come up with an intro. Do like a little something in the beginning. So our live versions now is just like the old days. There's like a live version, there's a studio version. So like we have this whole intro where we play the end of the song at the beginning, then start the song with additional vocal harmonies that are not on the record, and then we end it the way we ended it. Same thing with Shine On. So we do that one as well. That one we start the way we did, and then we put this like ending on it. Like at the end of the song, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but at the end of the song, there's like this vocal wash that comes over and then it kind of ends. We did that, plus we put like a little tag ending on it. And then in the last couple of weeks, we added a whole like jam at the end. We wanted to have like a fusion style piano solo for Chris at the end. And so we just tacked on this ending where we play like this like Prince style funk groove, like
no,
so
I'm people like John Anderson. They come from an era. They're hippies, basically. They're big
yeah,
hippies, and they
he's
come
very
from an
happy to
era.
try things. We're like, John, we
Yeah,
came up with, can we play it for you? He's like, yeah, go ahead. What do you think? Sure, do it. Okay, great.
they're products
And
in the 1960s of experimentation and trying to, blow people's minds. And these bands were formed, and then most of them started playing covers. Yes, started doing Beatles songs, things like that. But within that, they were trying to put in all these different things, and this is what was going on. I've worked with quite a few people from this period. Myself, like Bev Bevan from ELO, and I play with Rock Plant, and that's something that strikes me that they think like that. Where you get modern progressive musicians, it's like, well, this is the tune, and that's how it goes, and that. Whereas these guys are improvisers, and and things are continually evolving, and I think it's just what I'm feeling is that John Anderson does what he does, and he's found a band where he can do that, and it's just a wonderful thing. So this is why it sounds like yes, this is why everyone goes,
yeah,
oh, isn't this great? Because he's found a band, you know.
it's kind of, yeah, I guess so, because he could try this, and we do it, and then don't do this, and we don't, and like
Yeah.
we can follow. I think that's what gave him maybe what gave him the confidence to say like, you know what, let's do an album and it'll be fine. I don't know.
Right, let's move on to another discussion. As I mean, you're a fan of the channel, so you know that I have a sort of a
Oh,
bit of a strange sense of
if,
humor.
if
And
I uh, if I
I,
may,
yeah,
can I say a little thing here? I wanted to
yes, shoot you.
personally thank you for your fantastic lists and stuff. So here, I've done homework.
Yeah.
Here's a list of people that I've been checking out and I didn't know almost anything about before I started. So the band England, I heard that album. I was like, amazing. Chic itself, like I've heard of Chic, but like I never really stopped to listen until like whatever. Nowhere? Hello. Amazing. Cardiac.
I've just got the new Louis Cole album. Shall I show
Yeah.
you? You wait there.
Amazing.
I'll disappear into my records.
Yeah.
Right. I've got to say this because I don't buy many albums
Yeah.
now, because everything's online. Uh, on the same day as I ordered True by the band Geeks, I also ordered that. Oh,
Nice.
look at that. Look, oh, yeah, look. There we go.
It's like
Not
being on one
the
of
new
those
Louis Cole
Motor
album.
City videos.
I think it's his best album. I
Wow.
think this is the masterpiece. I really do. He's done it with a full orchestra. It's full on
Amazing.
prog. And I
I
love
love
the
it.
fact that we could have a big chat about Yes, but I can also mention Noah. I hope John Anderson checks them out because
Nowhere.
he will
Nowhere
love
is.
them.
I know you had a whole thing about this, which I absolutely love. Nowhere is progressive. They are not prog, right?
Yes, yes, I think
Big
that's the
difference.
right. Yeah.
So Nowhere, the Cardiacs, Martin Orford, IQ and Frost for yourself. It Bites. The Gino Vanelli prog stuff, the fusion prog stuff from Gino Vanelli. Never would have thought to listen to him in a million years. And there it is. The Venusian Summer, Lenny White album. I had never heard that. I had never heard Narada, Michael Narada Walden.
What were you doing?
Where was what was I doing?
I take Venusian Summer, the track Mating Drive,
Uh,
that guitar solo by Ray Gomez. Ray Gomez is one of the greatest guitarists of the 1970s.
that nobody knows,
And
including
I've
me.
got him on my Facebook. And in
Um,
about 1981, I think he made an album called Power. And if you listen to that, he sounds like Jeff Beck when Jeff Beck stopped sounding like Jeff Beck in the 70s and starts sounding like Jeff Beck in the 1980s. You know that sudden, with all the whammy bar and all this stuff that all
lost,
suddenly comes
lost
in.
the pick.
Yeah, and he sounds he got it from Ray Gomez. There's so many of these.
Hold on a second. Got my pen. Ray.
Ray,
Good.
go and check Ray Gomez out. I love this that we're just having a chat about music.
This is we have a saying in Band Geek Land when we call it when drummers meet, right?
Yes,
This is when Andy's meet.
yeah, or even
uh,
better.
just Roy Marchbank. Go back to Roy Marchbank, an amazing, incredible freak of nature guitar player. I know something about freak of nature guitar players because my teacher in high school was Ron Thal, Bumblefoot, if you know him.
What
Sure,
a player, an incredible player.
he was
He's best friends with another guitarist I've worked with called Fayan Zek. And
okay.
Fai is he makes music, a virtuoso guitarist, but he's more of a composer than a guitarist. Check Fai Yanzek out. I play on a lot of those albums. But
Oh wow,
if you like sort of surreal mushroom induced Frank Zappa, that is what Fai's stuff like.
Frank is
And
my favorite of all time, so that would be great.
yeah.
Loving the Chic Your Beauty behind you there. That's amazing.
Yes, there's so much good stuff out there. Have you checked out the band Henge?
Henge.
Check them out. I've just done an interview with them. It came out last night, so you can go
Nice.
check that. The thing about Henge is they're aliens, and
Nice.
it was a much more difficult interview. I was sat there racking my brains trying to think of what to ask them because what do you ask an alien? Like
Like interviewing the residents or something.
oh God, yes, yeah, Hedge are incredible, and then they sent me a whole bunch of bands to check out, and they're
Oh wow.
all believable. And I'm going to have to do a video on it, I think, at some point. There's so much incredible music out there
There
now.
is.
But as you know, my sense of humor, I
Yeah.
don't know if you noticed that I did an alternative cover for the
Yes.
album True, and I'm very upset that John didn't say, "Oh my God, we're going to have to recall all the albums." And use my cover. I think the one with the spirit level was the good one.
You know what? It's nice, in this AI kind of world that we live in now. Like you can make this. I saw the funniest thing. Somebody was like, "I just turned the card around inside the CD, and now the back cover is the cover." All right, fine.
Well, I will say this. I will say this. When I actually got the CD and I held the CD and I saw that cover, for me, I mean, it's a strange cover, right? There's no two ways. I
How would
mean,
you would have
before,
thought it would have?
before we get into it, I mean, has anybody else gone on about the cover, or is it just me?
No, that's like that is the criticism of the album.
And what does
You know,
John think? Has he mentioned this at all? He doesn't care, does he?
John is the one that fought for it because that's his daughter did the artwork. Here it is again. There it is, the lovely
Yeah,
cover right there. And it's funny because I'm looking at it and the color scheme actually matches like the fabric that I use for my little
yeah.
speaker things here is very much like in that.
You
To
know,
me,
you
this
know what upset me on that? It's that's lovely. That's lovely. He's holding a large diaphragm powered microphone, and they come in a cradle. And I thought they've just posed, and then when I saw the videos, he's actually singing into one. Does
yeah.
he sing into one of those live?
No, it's got a regular
No.
mic line. Yeah, regular wireless mic.
That was the thing that I mean. It's called the band
Just for
Geeks,
the video,
and he's
right?
holding a microphone with a cradle that
Uh,
you're not supposed to hold. You can't call yourself proper geeks with a
that was
fundamental, music technical error like that on the front of the cover.
somebody was freaking out about that. They're like, you just don't hold a microphone
You
like
don't
that.
hold it.
Like, all
Then I
right.
thought, but the thing is, maybe his glasses are so dark that he's just feeling for to make sure.
You know what this is?
Now,
You know
I
what this is right there? That's punk rock.
yes.
Take
I
that, the
think
main.
I think that John again is ahead of the curve because we should not be living in a world where you like the old days where you get like Roger Dean comes in and he charges you like 40,000 quid to paint something and it's all beautiful. What that is, that's John, and he's got a song on there, about love and his family and his loved ones, and he's got his daughter to do the artwork. I think it's
Yep.
absolutely fantastic, and I may take the mickey out of it, but I have to say I only do it because it brings people it brings people in.
Sure.
It brings
I
people
mean,
in.
can you imagine? We're already like, hey, these guys think they're yes or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
like, imagine if we came out with a Roger Dean cover.
Well,
Oh, you see,
John Anderson knows what he is doing, and John, if you're
John
watching
Anderson
this,
has never had
much
a Roger Dean
respect, and
cover.
I'm sure he has enough sense of humour to let me pull his leg a little bit, but I think he's right to do it. To be honest, I think it shows true love. That's what it shows. That cover does, and
Mhm.
it shows that it's like when I played with Robert Plant and we did our first gigs, Robert made the poster. He made it on like in Word, and he created this, and it was awful because it had about 15 typefaces on it, all different colours. And we photocopied that, and that was what was the first poster of the first gig we did, which was wonderful because he'd gone and made the poster, and
It
and
was
that's the
made by
world we're
Robert
living in.
Plant.
That's the world we're living in. It's like you and me. We're sat here chatting. I
Yeah.
mean, in the old days, we would have just been doing this and not recording it. It's we're just chatting now, like
Yeah.
musicians do, about what bands we're listening to, and you know,
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not what I would have figured it would be. But
yes,
you know what? There it is. And we joke sometimes. We're like, we should get this true. It's in like this kind of hip hop font. We should get it tattooed on our knuckles like this.
yes, yeah. It
Uh,
has, it has, it has got the look
Yeah,
of early
definitely
'90s hip
original.
hop album,
It's original. Put it like that. I
but
love.
who am I to criticize it because it's the album everybody's talking about?
Yeah. You know what? I not being in on the compositional too much of the
Yeah,
compositional side of it, as I'm hearing the demos and they're taking shape and the MIDI instrument replaced by real instruments, and I'm like, this is really good. Like I like this a lot. And Richie's like, well, Like, I know I'm coming from a fan perspective. Like, I like this. I like these songs. I think people will probably like these songs when they hear them. So I'm glad that it's like, um, I mean, I'm completely humbled that it's been going like there's not really much blowback from anything. There's like a little bit of like, oh, it might sound too much like this or that, but like 95% of everything I've read and seen, not that I read and see everything,
Mm.
but like it's very, very positive and people like it. So,
Well,
okay.
I spoke to Rob Reed the other day, and he has a British progressive rock band called Magenta, and
Oh, yeah.
they're very Yes influenced, you know. And he thought it was a great album. We had a big chat about it. But one of the
Yes.
things that is interesting, it's actually in a way more muscular and denser than the Yes album. There's a lot of stuff going on, you know. I can remember when I first put it on, I was like, whoa. You know, there's a lot going on. It's like the
There
sort of
is.
compositional. I mean, it's just got that touch of the sort of Dream Theater-esque prog metal. Just a touch of that is in there, you know, which I thought's wonderful, because you expect John Anderson at his age to be coming out with something a lot more ethereal, but it really kicks. Because Yes kick. This is the thing no
Well,
one understands about Yes. Yes rock, don't they? They rock.
that was our like our our main thing in doing like we have to play the songs. Like, yes, you want to have them sound like the album, but we're not trying to just sell it. We need to it has to have the
Gotta dig
it
in, you
has to
know.
rock.
It's
It
got to
has to
rock.
rock.
Yes, rock. You know, and you know when you get sort of Tales from Topographic Ocean, it just rocks. It is a brilliant album, but it rocks slightly less. And then when you get back to Going for the One, which is one of my favorite albums of all time, it rocks. And
I mean, Parallels is a punch in your face. That's an
but yeah,
amazing song.
exactly, yeah. And Going for the One is like almost like sort of bluesy sort of rock and roll, and it's a,
Yeah.
and Steve Howe's Yes doesn't rock. Anyway, I've said it. That's the problem. I've diagnosed it for you there. Yes, fans. Steve Howe, if you're watching, because we have really sung your praises on here, but can you please, on the next Yes album, rock? Think about Roundabout. That group, that groove between Chris Squire and Bill Bruford on Roundabout. It's just so meaty. It's up there with like James Brown for me. It's funky and groovy and rocks.
That's what it is about them. For they just were able to do it all. That's why they're so good. They
I
fit
mean, they're an
rock.
incredible band, incredible bands.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things with my channel is to try and champion this, because I think it's not right that bands like Yes are not spoken of in the same breath as the Rolling Stones or a Beatles. You know, there's some sort of people that look down their nose a little bit at a band like Yes, which they shouldn't.
They no.
It's an incredible
For this
artist.
kind of music, yes, is up here for that kind of music. Like they're the band that everybody else, was
Without a
influenced
doubt.
by and takes things from the bass sound. Obviously his bass sound grew out of his influences, but like once you hear that Squire once you hear the Rickenbacker with the distortion on it or whatever, like that's we know who you want to sound like.
Yeah, but it's
uh,
but Chris Squire
they
does stuff like
blueprint.
that where he's got that big thick sound, and then he'll move up to the high note, and then he'll just hold it. You go, how long can you hold that for? You know, and all those things that Starship Trooper, the way the bass notes just start to move. You've got that thing, and it's Chris Squire that creates the structure of that. Worm. It's incredible stuff.
I
Absolutely.
gotta say,
My favorite prog band, Yes is my favorite prog band.
mean, really, what can you say?
Yes, and I think John Anderson is the embodiment of that band. I believe he's the embodiment of prog.
I
And
agree.
through you, I've been able to get a message to him, and I hope, and I will say this now, I'm hoping that he will be on the channel soon. We will have John Anderson here, and that will be the biggest legend I've ever had on this channel. Although Billy Cobham and the Rider Michael Walden, I've had a few legends on, you know. So,
I mean, Billy Cobham, I mean, more
so
than
are you coming to the UK?
not yet, but
Oh,
you never
come
know.
on.
I'll go to the UK tomorrow.
I don't. I want you to come with John Anderson and the band Geeks. I want to come and see you play live.
I do too. Put it like that.
He's got to
Never
come
been
back
doing
to the.
it.
Can he tell him he's got to come back to the home of Prague?
Okay.
He
I've got
needs
to
to
say,
come back.
speaking of Chris before, on the new album, I feel like Richie did like a tremendous job of channeling all the Chris Squire things while while being true to himself as well.
Yeah,
You
but
know what I like
when
about
you
this?
say true to yourself, some of
Yeah,
his lines are absolutely insane.
they
Nothing to
are.
do with Chris Squire. He's got almost like a
Uncle
jazz
Phil.
approach. He just weaves through it, you know. Unbelievable. But I mean, the whole band is, but especially the bass. I thought it was unique bass playing. Absolutely incredible band.
If you listen, you know what I like about this is that you could listen to it and just focus on one instrument and hear like all the things that are going on. Obviously, like this is it's dense. There's a lot,
Yeah.
there's a lot of repeated listenings are your friend for this one. But like his bass lines are absolutely nuts and they're all phenomenal. And he plays the guitar solo in Build Me an Ocean in the middle, the little kind of like a half acoustic electric sounding Trevor Rabin style guitar solo. And he plays the solo at the very end of Once Upon a Dream, the one that sounds like Slash on the Mountaintop. That's Richie. Richie is an amazing guitar player. And I just can't say enough good things because
There's too
without
much
him,
talent in this
I
band.
wouldn't be sitting here with you. So that's
There's
amazing.
there's too much talent.
You're,
You need to come to the UK just so I can kill you all, so that we don't have this amount of talent going around, making me
gotta
feel
leave some room
bad
for other.
about myself. Oh, so many amazing players out there. It's incredible.
It's pretty
So
nuts.
I feel, with that question about coming to the UK and not getting a proper answer and feeling quite dejected by that, and hopefully, because everyone who's going to be watching my video, there's a lot of British people watch this, and they're going to be very upset with this, and hopefully it will create some sort of emotional pressure on you lot to we got to go to
Please.
the UK. Do you need help with getting some gigs?
It's the Prague motherland.
It took to
Have
from Motherland. Have you been to the UK?
No, I have not. I've been to France, I've been to Spain, I've been to
They're
Italy.
rubbish. They're rubbish. They're full of foreigners. You need to come to the UK. You need to come to
Uh,
the UK, the home of Prague.
yes, I do. I want to go there. I want to go to Canterbury. I want to go knock on
I'll
Camel's
tell you a
door.
little story. People have a go at me because they say I don't let the interviewers chat. I talk too much and I tell my own stories. But you know what I think? Sodom. That's what I think.
Hey,
Because I like to have a chat. I like to have a chat. You're right. Now, in my town, half a mile that way, there's a ballroom. There was a ballroom, and it was run by a guy called Frank Freeman. And Frank Freeman was he used to put on ballroom dance lessons in there, teach ballroom dance. And the kids that he used to teach, right? They used to say, "Can we have some bands on?" And Frank used to go, "Yeah, if you want, you can go. We'll get some bands on. Who would you like?" And in around about 1969, they turned around and said, "Well, there's this band, Yes, we like." And Frank booked Yes in my town in a little tiny ballroom, and they came down and played. I don't know if John would remember it. And if you go down there now, there's a blue plaque outside, and it says Fleetwood Mac, Yes, T-Rex, and Captain Beefheart played in this building.
well, believe me, if I'm ever there, I'll be there taking a
Yeah,
selfie
so
with.
if you come over, I can take you around some places you would not believe because Prague lives in the very essence of this country, and I think you need to come and
English, the English aesthetic that you talk about. I love that.
yes, but you have captured it beautifully, and
Yeah,
people they
copies
often
and
say,
cookies.
"Oh, Americans can do it if they wish." They
Right.
can do it.
That's right. We do our homework.
You have done it. It's a brilliant album. I'm so pleased to have chat with you. I think we're done, aren't we? Shall we finish up there and you can come back? Would you like to
Oh,
come back another time?
absolutely.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
let's. Well, I feel like I need to have a chat, just a music chat with you about different groups and guitar
Sure.
players and stuff like that.
We gotta talk Zappa. We gotta talk Mr. Bungle. We gotta talk all these great
Oh,
names.
you're talking my language now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Every single band that's out there, if you chat to the players in that band, they like Mr. Bungle. Doesn't matter what the band is, someone in that band will be a Mr. Bungle fan. I need to do a video on them, don't I?
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
shall we say goodbye?
I
Um,
guess so.
shall we say goodbye to them all? I'll just get my finger ready on the to stop recording. Right. So thank you, Andy, for coming on. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I hope
Certainly
you at home enjoyed it. Would you like to say goodbye to everybody? Bye
have. Of course.
bye. Bye
Goodbye.
bye.
Ciao.
Bye bye.
Okay now.
Oh, I didn't press the button.